students, I'm Himani Sharma, your educator. I warmly welcome you all on our YouTube platform, where we in today's video are going to touch upon and talk about another important feminist critic. Her name is Elaine Showalter. Now, if you would have watched the previous videos, you guys must be knowing that we are completing the feminist literary theory. We have talked about what is feminist literary theory, how it tries to deal with the pieces of literature, so on and so forth. If you know, we also have done a video which is related to the major theorists of feminist literary theory, what are their important works, including the subtitles that we have seen as a pattern in the NET examination. So complex करने के लिए now they have started asking questions related to the subtitles of the books, especially of Elaine Showalter. So you can view those videos, you can watch those videos, you can note down the things, because the books etc. they are in a chronological pattern which will help you guys to understand and memorize things in a sequential manner. What if they ask you a question related to the chronology of Showalter, right? So first of all, let's just see who she was and all. She has written, I already have told you in the previous lectures as well, and also in today, that she is a feminist literary critic. She is, she has written many books, especially the major one that is important, because usme she has coined some important phases of feminist literary theory or the works of literature, and she calls them by different names. What are they? What were the times, etc.? In the previous videos, we have talked about first, second, and third wave feminism. Showalter has defined the phases based on what were the changes that were being observed in the female literary canon. The female literary artists who were writing novels, etc., dramas, how were they changing things from one phase to the other? Because of course, अगर आप एक phase से दूसरे में move करते हो, eventually you evolve. You are not the same as you were in the very first phase. Same was with the female writers, and Showalter tries to talk about them. The important book regarding those phases is A Literature of Their Own, that was published in the year 1977. Now that thing is really important, because at times I already told you that the years have been asked of these books, about these books. This is the cover page, right? And it has a subtitle, British Women Novelists from Bronte to Lessing. From Bronte to Doris Lessing, correct? So she tries to talk about the female writers, keeping them as the center of her work. So she says that in this work, she defines the women's writing in three distinct phases, three distinct groups, three distinct time frames. The first phase that she tries to coin and talk about is known as the feminine phase, which lasted from the 1840s to the 1880s. The rough years are also important for you to memorize at least, or get a glance at, so that you know that pehla phase kaun sa aaya, it was feminine. It was a phase where the female writers were copying the achievements of the male writers. They were trying to imitate them. So that is something which becomes a very important part here in the first phase, that imitation is being done. They are viewing the writings of the male writers, and they are trying to incorporate the same themes, the same pattern, the same style of writing literature. They are not introducing something new. They are not introducing or bringing something new to the table. They are just standing firm with whatever has been written by the male patriarchal mindset, the male patriarchal writers, and they are taking them along with that. So they are imitating. It is characterized by woman writing in an effort, and these are the chunks which are in, of course, the commas, inverted commas, they are taken up from the essay, the book only, right? Women writing in an effort to equal the intellectual achievements of the male culture, that they want to be equal to the male culture, so they are trying to imitate the males. The distinguishing sign of this period is the male pseudonym, which exerts an irregular pressure on the narrative, affecting tone, diction, structure, and characterization. Women are imitating the male writers as well as they are using pseudonyms. What are pseudonyms? They are not using their own names, but rather they are using, जैसे George Eliot, but she has a real name. But just because of the fact that she wanted to be accepted in the society, she used a pseudonym, that too a male pseudonym, not a female one. So here, near the 1840s and 1880s, women were starting to write. But of course, they were using pseudonyms. They were imitating the man, the man who were in the literature, the literary figures, etc. They were trying to copy their style because they wanted their own selves, their writings to be accepted in the society. So the first phase, known as feminism, lasted from 1840s to 1880s, where we mostly see imitation of the male literary canon done by the women, along with the usage of pseudonyms and all, right? Not their own names. Then comes the second phase, which lasted from 1880s to the 1920s, which came to be known as feminist phase. So we call someone a feminist, we know that they are the ones who are going to protest. They are the ones who are putting their opinions across to make the women feel equally important and draw the theme of equality. So when we talk about the feminist phase, which came around 1880s to 1920s, women's suffrage era, when they started asking for the voting rights, especially in America, marked by protest against the internalized patriarchal values. यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा था? Female writers, because we are talking about the feminine, feminist and female phase in the context of literature. And Showalter also tries to talk about literature phase only, not the waves specifically. So she says that during the 1880s and 1920s, female writers, they started doing protest treatment of women in works by male writers in their own writing. So second phase mein, we see protest is there, that why a woman has been shown to be a damsel in distress. Why can't she speak for her own self? Can't she have her own identity? So here, the protest, firstly, they were trying to be accepted by the society in the first phase. Second phase came feminist phase. इसमें वो protest कर रही हैं कि male writing में, male canon में, women को एक helpless creature या always in the search of a man who will come on a white, horse, and the Prince Charming, as we call, or a knight, a shining knight in armor, to treat or cure the damsel in distress. लेकिन क्यों हम लोग को इतना helpless क्यों दिखा रहे हो? This is in the feminist phase that women have tried to. The female writers started questioning, protesting against the male canon and the writings that were prominently there by the males, जिसमें females को ऐसी image के साथ दिखाया जा रहा था. Right? So again, a passage from the book only. Women are historically enabled to reject the accommodating postures of femininity and to use literature to dramatize the ordeals of wronged womanhood that has been done by the patriarchal values कि woman ऐसे ही होनी चाहिए. This phase is characterized by Amazon utopias, which is what? And they can ask this term in the NET examination. These terms mean the visions of perfect female-led societies of the future. This phase was characterized by women's writing that protested against the male standards and values. And what did they say? What did they advocate or support about? The women's rights and values, including a demand for autonomy even in the field of literature, even in the field of writing. So we have Helen Sixu. She will say, censor the body and you censor breath and speech at the same time. Yourself, your body must be heard. Your body needs to be heard, and this is what she says in a very prominent book written by her. The name is The Laugh of the Medusa. And because Sixu is someone who is a French feminist, if you would have watched the previous videos, we have talked about how Sixu and other French feminists, they were much and more trying to talk about the body the female body and how it should be taken up as a token of strength. The female should be ready to accept their own selves as they are, correct? And not only Sikshu but other French feminists were only and majorly, I would say rather, that they were focusing on the female body, that how and why you should be so much confident to stand up for your own selves, literally and metaphorically, correct? So the second phase known as feminist phase lasted from 1880s to 1920s, where we see the female writers started protesting against the male standardization of female values. जो उनकी males की writings में female values दिखाई जाती थी, उनके against they started protesting and they started asking questions that what should and how a female should be written down in a piece of literature. Then came the third phase, which was known as female phase from the 1920s to present. Up until today, this phase is still there, known as the female phase. Female writers, they reject imitation and protest in favor of self-discovery. What am I? Even if I as a writer, agar Himani ek writer hai, then there's another female writer, we are different from one another individually. We, through the act of writing, can discover our own selves and can be different and still be appreciated. That is something which is being talked about in the third phase, known as the female phase, that protest bhi reject kar do and also reject the imitation and rather start focusing on your own self-discovery, self-awareness that you can have even by writing a piece of, article, novel, so on and so forth. This phase is liberatory. It is something which will give you liberation, freedom dega, marked by self-exploration of female subjectivity. That each and every female is an individual. They are not supposed to be, अगर एक कोई housewife है, एक homemaker है, तो वो अगर कोई teacher है या कोई lawyer है, उनसे अलग भी है, तो भी their job is also to be appreciated. That is something जो subjectivity, female subjectivity, मतलब हर औरत को आप एक ही, you cannot put them in some tightened compartments and say that yes, of course, women are supposed to behave in such a manner. That should not be done. And whatever a woman wants to do, they should do. So subjectivity comes and comes here, producing authentic, autonomous art, and even that could be seen in the various pieces of literature as well. Correct? So we did three phases. Number one was feminine, जहाँ पे imitation and pseudonyms use हो रहे थे. Number two was feminist, where the protest came. Females started fighting for their own rights and started to erase the image of how a woman should behave. Third में, they started exploring their own selves in the pieces of different arts. Correct? Rejecting the imitation, rejecting the protest. Then, in the female phase, the quote goes like, and I quote, "Women reject both imitation and protest. Two forms of dependency. For protest also will have to be dependent on the male counterpart, for imitation as well. But if we start discovering our own selves, we will not have anyone to get dependent on. So they are now becoming liberatory, right? And turn instead to female experience as the source of autonomous art, extending the feminist analysis of culture to the forms and techniques of literature." Literature में self-exploration करो rather than protesting against someone or imitating someone, because you are dependent on someone on those two stances. But if you start just taking your own selves into account, you will not be considering the second person. You will not be dependent on some other person as well. And so the next term that she coined, the other was the three phases that she has written, the three phases that she talks about with regards to literature, right? Then comes a new term that time and again has been asked in the NET examination, which is gynocriticism. This was, coined in the work Toward a Feminist Poetics. She divides feminist literary theory and criticism into two categories. That is also important to note down. Number first is feminist critique. Women are considered as readers, or gynocriticism, women as writers. So feminist critique में women as readers and gynocriticism में women as writers. What are they writing? How are they showing or portraying their own selves, the characters that are there, the female characters more importantly. Correct? So she coins it in this particular essay. It means tracing the evolution of laws or of a female literary tradition. How it has been and how it's changing. अगर हम पुराने टाइम की कोई नॉवल को आज के टाइम की कोई अच्छी ऑथर की नॉवल के साथ if we compare them, we'll see that of course there is a difference between the two. This one in the present time would be exploring her own identity, sexuality in a much more refined manner, and this one would consider exploring sexuality, would have considered exploring sexuality as a taboo in those times, correct? Because of the patriarchal mindset. It reevaluates history so that women are brought in from the margins of the discourse. Foucault talks about discourse, and here Showalter takes his ideas and she says that yes, of course, we know that power is spread through discourse, but how that power has been spread in the previous times, we need to question them, and we need to bring the women from those times and take their hand, make them stand here, bring them from the margins to the main center to take a stand for their own selves. Focuses exclusively on female authors from the previous times and in today's times as well. Correct? So these were certain things which time and again I already have told you have been asked in the NET examination related to Elaine Showalter, and of course the terms, the phases that she has coined, उनके बारे में भी पूछा गया है. So of course you guys need to make your own notes, put a little more emphasis on the subtitles of the works of Showalter which are there in the previous video. I'll see you guys again with some new theorist in the another video. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye bye.